First Read series, where I read a poem by a poet I don't know or know very little about, just for the sheer joy of it. For the first reading, I might misread it. I might come back and read it differently if I knew more about the poet's work, that person, how they write. But this one is just, like I said, sheer joy of the first reading. Maybe there's insight here, maybe there's not. This one is from MoCo, a Caribbean Arts and Letters journal. You can find this online. And it's On the Eve of My Birth by Cynthia Román-Cabrera. So On the Eve of My Birth. It's right before birth. I mean, I can't really make much out of the title. On the Eve of My Birth. It's kind of evocative, like what happens before you're born. So we'll see. The wind howled into the night. Pitter, patter, green rain pounded on my chest. So I'll just stop here. So, when I look at a poem, always I look at the form of it first. And this one, just quickly glance at it, looks like open form, free verse. So I'm not going to focus too much on the form. However, the sound of the poems right away, the sound of these lines distinctly jumps out at me as somebody who has played with meter quite a bit, or at least has a very good ear. So the wind howled into the night. So you have that, like the strong, it's a, kind of spondy here. The wind howled. And you have the, into the night, the unstresses into the final stress. And then pitter, patter, green rain. That shifts. So she shifts from, which is basically largely iambic, English standard meter here in the beginning, to this pitter patter, green rain, two trochees, and then a spondy at the end. It's kind of strength here, and you can hear the rhythm change of the line. Pounded on my chest. So then you shift back into something else here, and tumbled upon the land. And that's that fourth line here is a pretty standard iambic line. I don't use the meter that much in open form, but it's in all poems, whether we think about it or not. And this one, it just jumps out. I think this poet has a very good ear. That much is clear just looking at this, beginning. You're going to wonder why the first line is, it's got a lowercase letter starting with the, although we have uppercase letters after the sentences. So is the title part of that? I'm assuming it is. So that would mean on the eve of my birth, the wind howled into the night. That's how that line should more properly be read, which the journal setup doesn't make it look like that. But that changes, I think, how I read the title. If the title is supposed to talk to the whole poem or just be the beginning of the first line, that's a different thing. So on the eve of my birth, the wind howled into the night. Pitter patter, green rain pounded on my chest. On my chest, which is a kind of interesting concept here. If you haven't been born, how does the rain pound on your chest? I'm not really sure how to work with that, what the image is. I mean, the sound in this poem is enough to make me want to read it. Sometimes I can read a poem just go with the sound and enjoy that. I mean, that's, I think, half the reason I read poetry is because of the beauty of the sound of it. But this one, the rain is coming, it's pitter-pattering, pounding on my chest and tumbled upon the land. So the rain's coming down on the land. It's, pounding on this person's chest, this speaker's chest. Soot and bushy, I wandered. Which is a kind of odd description for soot and bushy. How is one soot? You think it like full of soot, covered in soot? Soot and bushy. This is not typically adjectives that you see too much used with people. And so I wonder if this is more spirit. It's hard to tell what's going on. Is this the person's spirit before they've come into the body? I don't know. I don't think we get enough to go on here. I think it's kind of interesting to play with the ambiguity of this poem so far. Very interesting. Again, the ambiguity of like, where are you before you're born? That question. I think we all want to know the answer for, like, how does the soul exist or whatever? Brings up a whole bunch of questions. Without specifically answering anything so far, I wandered with the climb of a high, paper wings, with the climb of a high, and then that adjective doesn't doesn't have a noun because paper wings flame made of journal. Well, it's a descriptor of the high. So it's the high is working as the noun. I wandered with the climb of a high. A high what? Or just high. Like this is like being high or just high up. I'm not really sure. Paper wings flamed made of journals. Does this person have paper wings? This spirit, whatever it is, has paper wings. I'm not really sure. An emergency of strength. An emergency of strength. I mean, that's kind of fascinating line there. An emergency of strength is this emergency of strength of this person about to be born. I almost think you would think of as this line as a play on emergence of strength, like something emerging. Beaten furiously, sticky with wet. I mean, the other reading of this is not being born, but being born as you are as a person. So like that could be there, like you've discovered who you are as a person, that kind of more idiomatic take on birth and not just literal birth. I'm not really sure right here. We don't have enough to go on. I don't mean that in a negative way. I think the ambiguity is kind of part of this. Beaten furiously, sticky with wet, latched to burrows beneath the earth. There's all kind of images here. We have the heights. We have these wings that are flaming, but now sticky with wet. They're latched to burrows beneath you. So we're now under the earth instead of this kind of high, like arms sat by the many, the kite, a puppet. I don't know. These are all like childlike things. You have a kite and the puppet playing off here, so I'm not really sure what to do with them. Tormented hands of guilt tethered the clouds. Sliced trees held court and flirted with gray and floods. Whose tormented hands? I don't know. The speaker doesn't give us whose tormented hands these are. Who they are tethering the cloud and slicing the tree. Who can actually tether the cloud and slice a tree? I mean, you could do this in a drawing as a child, but as a real thing, you'd have to be, this would have to be an imagined thing, unless you were something more than human. Held court and flirted with gray and floods. Those fucking wings plucked and groomed. So these wings again, are these, I don't know what these wings are. Are these some kind of angel, devil wings? I don't know. Is this like trying to figure out what your wings are as a person coming into who you are? I don't know. We have so many readings we can do of this. There's so many evocative things here. I think so many times people want to take a pen and make a poem mean something. I think we learn how to do that in school. This one, I don't know that it's there, and that's fine. I think poems don't have to always mean something. They can just make you think about something, make you excited about something. And the language in these kind of images do that for me. I might read it differently if I read this in a book where she's talking about, like, I don't know, whatever, spirits or coming to know herself or whatever that is. For now, I don't know. Screams into an icy river, extinguished the fever. Manic, famished, wings of teeth and word and stumped, undressed. There's so many images here. So we have the wings again. We have wings coming all throughout this. Now the wings of teeth and word and stump, which quite differently than these kind of like fiery wings up ahead. Up above we had undressed, like they're being taken off. It's like the wings are losing somehow that kind of burning imagery to become like a more real thing, a stump, a word, teeth. Not that a word's more real, but something more like human. Before long, I left my shadow, chased the escape. Like, how is somebody leaving their shadow? Is this because the sun has gone down, or their soul and they're coming to the earth, or I don't know. Right? Are they becoming born because they left this shadow side of themselves that they now understand better? Not really sure. Time behaves, longs for the spaces where breath came easy. It's just a nice little section. Time behaves, longs for the space where breath came easy. This is like, time is how allowing this to happen. I crawled through my scalp, quilted a blanket, soothed baby hairs, plucked at the empty. And this, the very end, draws up this birth image again, like the baby. It's like this person is like crawled through the scalp of this baby, somehow quilted a blanket. We have babies covered with blankets, smoothed baby hairs, and plucked at the empty. I don't know. I mean, this is like very evocative images. If this was in a book where like you were talking about like somehow the growth of a person and this is before their actual birth and you kind of followed it time-wise, I would think somehow this is the spirit coming into the body. This, we're something different where this person is learning who they are. Maybe they're born again emotionally, as a baby after all of these experiences. I don't know. I can't pin it down at this point because we don't have enough like detail. Like I said earlier, I don't think that's a negative thing. I actually find this poem kind of fascinating in its ambiguity. And it's just the beautiful sound of it. I mean, that thing I pointed out at the beginning, the kind of metrical quality of it goes throughout this poem. Tethered the clouds, sliced trees, held court and flirted with. That kind of like, this person's really good. Sliced trees. You have the spondee here, which would be in traditional poetry, held court and flirted. So another spondee, but it's like a slighter stress, and flirted. So back down, back up, back down again, gray and floods, down, up, with the stress of the pattern. Very, very nicely done. Very good here for this poet. So, like I said, this poet's name is Cynthia Román-Cabrera. So she's a native from New Yorker, born to Dominican and Puerto Rican parents. All right. Definitely somebody to check out and read more about.